My name is Sean Turner. I'm on the leadership team at Distinct Business, and we have an amazing special guest here today with us. This guy is an incredible business leader and a prophetic voice, and his name is Marco Leardini. Marco, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having us, Sean.
Yeah. So you have been in business pretty much all your life. You've been in ministry, you've been on the mission field, you've had companies that have been on the fastest growing list of Inc. 5000, not once, not twice, not even three times, but six times. Your payment processing company has been in the top 100 of America. And so like you have a lot of experience, and you've spoken in front of presidents. You have spoken on the National Mall in DC to share a very timely message to millions of people across the world. You've been in all these different places, and one thing that we've talked about is that a lot of Christian culture says and leads you to believe that it's more important to be in the pulpit, and that's more valuable to God's kingdom than being in business. Can you tell me your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's an unfortunate thing that's been propagated, for so long. Even when I went to Bible college, I felt that way. I felt that behind the pulpit was the only way to serve the Lord. And in Bible college, it was, you're an anointed businessman. So while they acknowledged that, they said, well, you take care of doing your business thing, and we'll take care of ministry, and you'd go make a lot of money and give it to the church. Basically, you provide the provision as the king, if you will. Kings and priests we hear taught about, right? And but you provide the provision for the priest's vision. And it was disheartening, to say the least, for a while, because I thought, okay, well, I guess that's all I get to do is just be a business person, which is a great thing to do.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. But it's like, Lord, I feel like is this all that you have for me? So I've learned along the way that it's just as important to, God will use you on one side of the pulpit or the other. You're still a child of God, and whatever he's called you to do to expand his kingdom, it doesn't matter which side of the pulpit you're standing on. I mean, most of the people are, what is it, 1 or 2% of Christians are going to be behind the pulpit. And what I mean by behind the pulpit is obviously speaking or, quote unquote, full-time ministry. But the Lord showed me just so many cases over and over, your Josephs, your Daniels, your Nehemiahs, the leaders of faith through the history of the Old Testament, that they were used, and none of those people were quote unquote in ministry per se. So I said, wow, that makes sense. So
Yeah, you look at Nehemiah and Joseph and Daniel, all of them were either working for the king and or were just had business acumen that was it propelled them to that high level to work with Pharaoh or the king at the time. And at the same time, you see them, they're leading God's people and building his kingdom through their obedience.
right. Yeah, they were men who loved their Lord, and they would seek his presence to find out what his heart was and his ways and his will for their roles in the lives of of other people that they were stewarding, and nations that eventually that they would help save. Really,
I'm reminded in Daniel 2, I think it's verse 19, where he has just given the interpretation of the dream, and he's talking to God. He says, God, you are the controller of world events. You bring kings off their throne and you put new kings on, and you are the revealer of deep mysteries. And he's thanking God for all of this this idea or these results that he ultimately could have never come up on his own. Yeah, so that's incredible. When we look at some of your business accomplishments, and all I see is speed. When Inc.'s 5,000 fastest growing list of companies in America on multiple occasions, that to me sounds like a lot of burnout. But can you tell me how do you handle the speed? What does this look like in your life?
well, I handle it differently now than I did before.
Yeah.
As a driven entrepreneur who's now presence driven, that would be a good name for a club or
Yeah, I think
a
an
community, wouldn't
organization
it?
might have that as their vision. Yeah.
But as a what the way I worked before is just I had that kind of personality where I had a drive and wanted to get things done and could get things done. Just an anointing on my life just to make things happen. And so I would move at the speed of whatever I felt was needed to get done, or the speed of the opportunity that was made available. Um, Eventually, the quote unquote success that we had at the company, which I've since sold about 3.5 years ago, but that success was, I mean, I give God all the credit for that. We didn't do any marketing, we didn't do any advertising
Wow.
at
No
all,
marketing.
not a dime, not in 21 years.
Wow.
That's how long we had the company. I started before or after I graduated Bible college and was going to the mission field. We started with, I had $2,000 and I know I was going to mission field and I had to continue to raise funds for that and help support other missionaries. And some events happened to force me to go from an independent contractor with someone to starting the company and did that. And God just totally blessed us. One of the reasons or the things I attribute to that is just being faithful with the tithe. Like every entrepreneur starting a business, it's hard getting it started. It's hard growing it, but you come up with challenges and things come out of the blue that you're not expecting. But we said that we're going to be, if we go down, we're going to go down tithing, and that was one of the things that we stuck with. And God was so faithful in and continuing to provide that. But we were just moving quickly. Those things came to an end in 2021. And since then, I've learned a lot about really just resting and slowing down. It's something that you can get on such a track, just going, and doing the next thing. Another opportunity comes, and I'm going to sell this company now that I can do something else. But there's a story there that of making time to rest and reset and recalibrate before relaunching.
Yeah. So when you were just sprinting essentially, and there are times that we have to sprint in
Yes.
business, especially when there's an opportunity that is time bound. And so when you sold the company, where you were still in sprint mode, did it take a few weeks, a few years? Like, how long did it take you to finally realize, like, wow, what have I done to myself?
Yeah, well, it took about 5.5 months as I'm thinking about the timeline, because I sold in May and immediately started doing more technology. Had an opportunity um, to do some technology that's going to help government, education, military, and even the underground church. And so I was involved in what I call like the kingdom tech swirl, if you will. There was things happening in the world with COVID coming, that was here, and it was like, oh, we don't want to be deplatformed. We need a kingdom alternative to all this technology, which is true. We do, and there is that being built, which is great. But it was this path that I was on and started. I hired several people, more than a handful, and about a month and a half and over $1 million into it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It kind of hits you right here, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and we were making great progress. Some incredible design work was being done, and it was for a valid reason, to help bring the gospel and communication um, uh, to the kingdom folks, but also around the world. So while it was good, I found out it wasn't God. It wasn't His timing. He said, "Well, if you didn't ask me what my heart is for this, and you didn't ask me, some of my ways, but you're understanding my will. But unless you understand my heart and my ways, the will thing, you're not hearing about timing and who I want you to do it with. Those things are just important as what you're doing."
Yeah.
So
Well, I think what you're talking about with the kind of a parallel economy, I don't know if that's the right phrase for it or not, but essentially in 2020, 2021, and even years leading up to that, we started seeing these voices who were not going along with the major narrative at the time being deplatformed, kicked off, websites being shut down, videos being censored. And that is something that you could get caught up in and say, this is highly needed, not only in America, but across, we see Europe now, the turmoil happening over there,
oh yeah.
Christians and other nations being essentially eliminated by murder. But was it hard for you to pull back from that mission when, especially since you've been on the mission field in many different countries, dangerous countries all over the world? How did you
It
pull back
was
gracefully?
it was well, as gracefully as possible, because I just hired several people, as I mentioned, put a bunch of money into new computers and all that stuff. I just want everyone to have the best of everything. And then when I did a fast, I think it's one of the Mercy Culture fasts. We were called to one of the many that we do, Mercy Culture. Um, and I really just sought the Lord. And I'm like, well, what pleased you, Lord? He goes, well, this you need to just, I can use this later, but this is not what you need to do. I need you to slow down and rest. And so he called me to a season of rest. So it was difficult, but there was grace there for me to make the phone calls and to have the conversations, the difficult conversations I had to, because these people left. Some of them left their other jobs and good jobs and felt like they wanted to help. And I just said, hey, this is my heart. I made a mistake on the timing. I don't think it's the wrong thing. I just think it's the wrong time.
That's so important.
And yeah, so the timing is key. It's not just the what. Again, it's the when. The why is super important. What is God's heart for it? Because there's a million things that we could do, and there's a ton of things that are pulling at us and opportunities to help, and even good kingdom things that we can be involved with. It's legitimate, but is it timely? Is it the Kairos time? To get something done, and hearing the Father's heart on that. But his grace is sufficient, and I made the calls, and people were understanding. And then it was just a season of a sabbatical of just rest. He says, you need to rest. You need to seek me, get in my presence more, and just recalibrate. And basically it's going through a season of dismantling to get remantled, because it's easy just to go keep the momentum going because I do it. This is what I do. I'm an entrepreneur. Hey, we gotta keep moving forward. And also he spoke to me at that time, he gave me a great revelation, just some deep insight about, why am I so driven? Because you're asking about the speed at which you're going. And I thought it was just because there was things to get done and I like doing it. But I said, okay, what are kind of the modus operandi operating here? Is there something behind the scenes? And he showed me, just revealed to me, he said, there's a library of lies that you've been listening to. And that's actually what's propelling you and driving you. It's not that you want to be successful, because you're more afraid of failure catching up to you.
Wow.
Than even the success. Because success, you're not afraid of that, right? But what is pushing? And so
So the wrong thing is motivating you to
Right.
drive for that performance. And what I hear you saying is, like, now you've come to this revelation that we should be pursuing God's presence, and out of that, the performance will dictate the speed. And
totally, I as I shared with you earlier, and Pastor Steve, we said I even created a T-shirt because I was so impressed. He was impressing on me about your presence is really what does it matter what we do if we don't have His presence? Why would we go and do anything?
yeah, that's what we say at Distinct, is because Moses was up on the mountaintop. He was talking and convening with the Lord. He said, I will not go forward unless your presence goes with us, because your presence makes us distinct. And so here you are having the same revelation.
Exactly. So I was like, you know what? There's nothing wrong with performing, but it's got to be presence over performance. The presence is the priority with everything. I mean, that's what we were made for, relationship. It's the whole Bible story it's a love story is really what it is. And God so loved us, He gave us His Son. And so we need to go back to Him and find out what pleases Him.
Yeah, that's good. Well, so we just had the Distinct Breakfast where you share with us and out of Nehemiah, and you had 7 P's for success. Can you tell us more about how those will help us business builders and business leaders in our business?
Yes. So Nehemiah is a great story. I've been studying it for over 20 years now. And before, when I was studying it, I was focused on, it's all about a story about the walls and the gates, and it's restoring these things. And I would get some revelation about the gates and the name of each gate and what that meant and how that even applied to business or ministry. So there's some cool revy there. But it wasn't until, years and years ago, so probably about 15 years into my study journey of Nehemiah, I realized he's He's the consummate builder. And it's not about building his own empire. It's really about building a place for security so that and safety. That's what the walls really represented. And it's a place where community can come back together and the entrepreneurial opportunities and economy is going, because what he basically was helping to recreate was a God-centered entrepreneurial community. That's what the Israelites always were. God's people were. They were God-centered, but they were very entrepreneurial, and they were a community. And so what he was really doing is just helping to reestablish through the safety measures putting in place of let's have community again and let's bring God back. And that's what Nehemiah did too. He built the platform that Ezra read from, so the word of God, so there was repentance, and then they started prospering again, all from this guy Nehemiah who felt God's heart and mourned and wept and fasted for many days and got into it. So Nehemiah there's a story there that I noticed several things in there that I pulled, kind of 7 things out to help us understand some of the P's of success, I call it.
Yeah. Give us the details.
Well, the first one, as we said, is the presence. So that is everything starts with presence. It has to continue in presence, and it ends in presence. I mean, even as we're as spirit beings, we started in His presence. We're here temporarily on earth, right? And then we're supposed to continue that engagement to His presence, and we'll end up when we pass away back. So we were born for presence. So that's where we got to start. And Nehemiah, he talks about if it pleases the king and your servants found favor in your presence. Like, wow, I know we've been speaking about that too at Mercy Culture, the series on favor forever, and find out what pleases the Lord. I mean, this is what Nehemiah did. So the presence is, kind of the first P, if you will. When you find what gives God pleasure, favor, then you've got purpose. So that's the second P. You find your purpose, and you find the purpose for which, not just what you were created, but how you're supposed to contribute to helping advance the kingdom through whatever you're doing, whether it's through your family, through a ministry, through a business. We all have the same kind of goals in mind, or we should, that same kind of original mandate from Genesis.
That even just goes back to what you were talking about earlier, how our purpose, a lot of times people see someone else thriving in their purpose and they think their purpose is more important than mine. And whether that's a preacher up on stage giving a powerful message, or another person, a business leader having success. And is there a way that you saw Nehemiah find his purpose? Was there any secret that he really sought to help identify that?
He stewarded his position well before being brought before the king. He didn't just start as a king's cupbearer. He got to that position and an advisor. I think when he felt what was going on, when he got that report from his brother Hanani about what was going on, that the gates were burnt and the walls were torn out, he felt God's heart. And so I think that's when he tapped into that, he goes, oh, this is what I'm supposed to do. When we went before the king, he did find, the natural king, he did find favor, and with the queen that was beside him. But he just prayed and he knew what he was supposed to do. So he asked for certain things. He asked for provision, protection, and promotion, and he got those things. It's the letters that he got to travel and have authority to go through the different areas that he had to. So he got the authority that he needed. He got the provision with the timber to build, not only to rebuild what needed to be rebuilt, but also for the house that he would be in. And he got the protection from the king's army that went with him. So he got everything by stepping into that place of presence and then found purpose in that.
That's good. That's really good. And it was from his heart being moved by his country and by God, and then fasting and praying.
Yes. So he found God's heart. So then from getting the purpose, he got the strategy or the blueprints or the plan. So he got the plan when he was asked by King, so what are you going to do and how long are you going to be gone? He goes, so I prayed. I can just say as a real quick loop prayer under breath. Okay, here's what I need to do. So he came up with that plan. He got the permission, as I mentioned. He got the protection. He got the provision with the timber. And then the last thing is the people came around. So when he had the vision, we hear about write the vision and make it plain, right? So those who read it can run with it. Well, he did that. I don't know if he wrote it down, but it says he surveyed, he did his diligence for several days. He inspected the walls, and then he came back and said, okay, here's what needs to do. So he spoke in front of the people. So he presented the vision, and here's what God has said to do, and here's the favor of the king that I have. And so the people with the ears to hear and heart to obey, they said, let's arise and build, and let's do this thing. And so there's the 7 P's.
Yeah, though as you're speaking this, I obviously we were talking about Nehemiah, but you can see this happen in even Joseph and other stories where he had the presence, and so he was able to uh, interpret Pharaoh's dream, and then he had the plan, right? And he tells him, "Hey, this was your dream. Here's the plan. You need to do this." And Pharaoh's like, "You're the man for the job." And so then he got the authority right then, and he got the protection, and it was given to people. So it was like you can see this like blueprint that you've these small nuggets uh, throughout the Bible in multiple instances.
And there's lots of history of it. And that's why I said it's that the freedom that comes from understanding that God can use you no matter what. You're a builder. We're all builders, whether we're building businesses or families or ministries. We all have the same responsibility, and we're just the person behind the desk, charging forward the business is no less esteemed by God in his obedience or her obedience than anyone else that's on the other side of the pulpit. Because we're all still, at the end of the day, no matter what hat you put on, what title you have, what plaque is on your desk, you're still a child of God. So that's what matters to him. And you're successful not by what you get or how many awards you win. I mean, it's great to have the awards. It's great to have the human accolades, from natural. But when God says, well done, good and faithful servant, enter the joy of the Lord, that's where I want to be.
Yes, everything else will fall away. That will
right.
last forever.
You want to please your Father.
Yeah. So one final question. So we're our audience are Christian business leaders. When you look out onto the horizon into the future, is there any kind of warning or advice or encouragement that you could give to those Christian business leaders?
Yeah, I would say that there's always going to be a challenge to do things quickly, and to do things well, which we're called to do things with excellence. We've got a season now with the politically where we'll have a bit of a breather, so to speak. I think it's time to go back to, and what I've done this, I call it the whiteboard exercise. I just lay everything aside. And when I went through this period of rest and a fasting time, when I shared this with a few colleagues and friends, they're like, I took time to rest like you're doing. I'm joining you in this. And the things that the Lord exposed. So I call it the whiteboard. So I just put everything out there. Lord, here's what I'm doing. Even Sabbath, as we Sabbath during the week to rest from the work, we need to Sabbath just doing the work sometimes and just get with God and go, is what I'm doing pleasing you? And if it is not pleasing you, what do I need to strip away? Here's all these things I have, whether it's things I'm currently doing, people I'm currently working with, contracts that I'm currently thinking about signing or already in. What pleases you here? And be willing, because if we're saying it's God's company, well, the test is really, how are we holding it like this? Or are we holding it? It's my company, but it's your company, but it's my finances, but it's your finances. Well, if it's true what we sing, it never be mine. It always is yours, Lord. So you let him have his way with it, and being comfortable that if the God of heaven can take care of your spirit for eternity, he can take care of you and your family and your business and your ministry while we're here. And it's really just about trust. It's slowing down. Sabbath is the same thing. It's like you're trusting God. 100% of finances is his, 100% of your time is his, but he can trust you, with the 90 if you give him the 10 or more, and often he'll require that. But the challenge would be just to make sure you take time to rest. Ask the Lord, what do you want me to erase off this whiteboard? I'll start fresh. God knows, and he does know, I've had to do that several times just to refine it and define it. Goes, this is what my breath is on. This is what pleases me. Arise and build.
That's great. I'm reminded as you're speaking about how when Saul was being surrounded, the Israelites were surrounded, and his men were like digging holes. They were running away, and they were waiting on Samuel to show up and give the sacrifice. And finally, Saul says, "The situation, the time looks dire. We need to hurry this up. Go ahead and do the sacrifice and get this over with." And as soon as he gets it over with, Samuel shows up and is like, "What have you done?"
You're right.
What? And
Trying to make it
because,
work in your own strength.
yeah, and out of his own striving, out of his own fear of being overrun, overtaken, out of fear of losing loyalty
Fear of
from his
man.
men, yeah,
His
and
big problem.
because of that, because he didn't wait on the Lord's timing, Samuel said, "Because of this, you're no longer going to be the king of Israel."
It's taken away from you. The kingdom's taken away. Yeah.
It's like we have to have our thoughts fixed on the Lord all the time. In Proverbs, it talks about he whose thoughts are fixed on him will walk in perfect peace.
That's right, because his mind is stayed on him because we trust him. Yeah, that's one of my favorite verses. And I've learned that too. It's just, we live and move and have our being in him. And he is the perfect peace that surpasses all understanding. It's not just a word. He is peace. And so that's why, my prayers lately have been just, Lord, let your perfect love, just let me just feel it, because it casts out all fear. And we all have different fears. When you're building whatever it is, that's why Nehemiah, I love the verse in chapter 2, verse 20. It says, "But the God of heaven will give us success, this day. But you have no right, no claim, or no inheritance." And he was speaking to, Sanballat, Tobias, and the Arab, which are representative just as spirits, the same kind of attacks we come under today. But just remember, God's the one that's going to give you, he will give us success, and he wants us to be successful. I mean, Deuteronomy 8:18 says, "Remember the Lord your God, for it's he that gives you power to make or create or establish wealth," because he's establishing his covenant with your fathers as it is this day. That same covenant continues today. So
That's so good. But thank you so much for being here on the Distinct Podcast. And
it's been my pleasure, my distinct honor. Thank you.